about it, what they want to do with it. They want to introduce the Great Reset, where the ordinary people, not the elites mind you, but the ordinary people will own nothing and be happy. The only way they can do this is by dividing the population, by destroying their rights, including property rights and the rights of freedom of speech. The hate speech legislation that is before the law at the moment is only the first of a series of draconian attacks against the rights of the Irish people that this government has planned. Once that legislation is passed, it will be very difficult indeed for the people of East Wall or anywhere else to engage in peaceful protest against the government, because any chant or any slogan will be treated as hate speech and will be attacked by the politically correct courts which have been put in place by the government in order to undermine our democracy and to subvert the constitution of the Irish Republic. We can't let them do this. The second major plank of undermining people's rights that this government has planned for us is the 39th Amendment to the Constitution, which is proposed for next year and which will effectively put an end to the property rights of Irish people. The wedge that is being used for this is the importation of massive numbers of people who will need to be housed. The government is deliberately setting about the creation of a housing crisis coupled with an immigration crisis, and they then propose to give every person resident in this country, not citizens mind you, but simply a residents, no matter how they came here, the right to housing. And they state in the proposed amendment that if required it will be necessary to amend existing property rights to vindicate that right. What this means is that nobody will be safe in the security of their own house and on their own land. And if the government is faced with an emergency of housing incoming immigrants, which inevitably they will be, they will simply expropriate private property to meet that need. But it can only happen if we let it. And now is the time for us to say, no, we will not let this happen. No. The COVID deception, and I think an increasing number of people are beginning to see it as that, was simply a dry run for a system of tyranny to be used against all of us. They wanted to see how much they could get away with. They wanted to see would there be any pushback from the people, from the press, from the
mask was
an
act of submission to the state.
We now know, if we think that we can rely on the courts or the churches or the so-called free press to defend our liberties and rights, then we're living in clown cuckoo land. The only way we can protect our liberties by standing up as free people, as you're doing today, and telling the government that enough is enough.
Yes, enough.
We have had enough of pointless war games and virtue signaling importation of unvetted aliens into our country under the guise of compassion for refugees, while our own people go homeless, destitute and ill-treated. We have had enough of Irish people being treated as second-class citizens within their own homes, while priority is given to people with no connection to this country. We have had enough of fake opposition parties like Sinn Féin, who demand more lockdowns, more immigration and more restrictions on our rights and liberties. We have had enough of engaging in the pretense that you can run a modern industrial economy using only wind and solar power. You cannot. We have had enough facilitating the pipe dreams of the deranged Green Party, which ordinary
paintings of you.
Oh, thanks, then your good self.
We have had enough of our political
as long as it doesn't end up like
leaders
Dorian Gray in the
patted on their head by Klaus Schwab, Prince Charles and Greta Thunberg and the other neo-Nazis that they look up to. We will have no great reset. We will have nothing to do with that horrible phrase, you will own nothing and you will be happy. We will fight these people if it is the last thing we do. I know that many people have come to the conclusion that politics is finished. And when you look at the mainstream parties of this country, it is easy to reach that conclusion. Their latest ruse is to prohibit the formation of new political parties which do not have an existing TD. In other words, they want to stop the formation of any political dissent. Coupled with the hate speech legislation, it is clear that we are heading into full-on communism. And that is why we have the so-called centrist parties in government. Wait until Sinn Féin get their hands on the levers of power. Wait until they succeed in corrupting our judiciary to the point where they will be beyond rescue. Wait until they corrupt and attack the Garda Síochána to the point where they will only concentrate on the political enemies of Sinn Féin. Then you will know what serious attacks on ordinary working people are really like. Remember, Sinn Féin advocated for harsher and tougher lockdowns, just as now they advocate for greater levels of foreign immigration. There is no party with less right to wear tricolour in the Sinn Féin party. We in the Irish Freedom Party commit ourselves to the protection and the salvation of the Irish nation. We are a registered political party and we give you a genuine alternative. We will fight for your rights to freedom, to affordable housing, to fair play and to justice. We will not allow our institutions, our courts or our police force to be corrupted. We will not allow this nation to be sold out to foreign interlopers in the European Union.
Well, having three heads of the Gardaí swearing an oath of allegiance to the Queen isn't a good idea either.
We will have candidates running in this constituency. If we do not stand up now, we will not have an Ireland to protect in 10 years' time. Again, I congratulate the people of East Wall for showing national leadership at a time when it is sorely needed. I call on communities throughout this country to follow your example and to stand up to government and to let them know we will not allow our country to be destroyed. We will protect the Irish nation and the Irish Republic. Thank you very much.
David Bly is going to say a few words now.
How's the sound on this, folks? You hear me alright? Folks, my name is Derek Bly. For those of you that don't know me, I've been travelling around this country for several years now with Philip Dwyer, documenting buildings like this that are being filled up with single, foreign, Middle Eastern men, young military-aged men. And it's not just happening in East Wall, it's happening in Killarney, it's happening in Cork, it's happening in Wicklow, it's happening in every county in this country. It's happening everywhere, well done. But East Wall, and I have to commend you, because you put this issue in the spotlight, not just nationally, you've done it globally. The world is watching you, East Wall. We were in Wicklow this morning. Wicklow got a plantation a few years ago of families, women and children, and there was an attempt to integrate them. But what happened in Wicklow was a typical bait and switch. A few weeks ago, those families were moved out and more single men were moved in. And almost immediately, the violence, the pestering of women, the loitering started, and the people are scared. And this is all over the country. Killarney has a population of 10,000 people in normal times. 3,500 people were moved into Killarney. The population of Killarney has changed demographically. So this is everywhere. The war in Ukraine, the fake war that we were sold, was used as a smokescreen to smuggle hundreds and thousands of African, Arab, Georgian men into this country.
How long before they're wearing a UN uniform?
Yesterday I met two men who had just started on the job. A local Cork man and a Georgian man. Both of them were sent by an agency. Both of them were paid €18.50 an hour. The Cork man was homeless, sleeping on his mother's couch. The Georgian man was staying inside the hotel. He arrived here 4 weeks ago, paid for by you. His lunch was paid for by you. He has no expenses. He gets to keep every single penny.
That's wrong! That's wrong!
That's coming out of your pocket.
That's wrong!
Folks, what's happening to our country is replacement. We are being pushed out and these people are being brought in to replace us. They're incentivizing our young people to leave the country, go to Australia, and they're putting these people in their place. We need to stand together as one people and push back against this. I heard voices during the week saying that this is an East Wall problem. This problem. It's my problem. It's your problem. It's Cork's problem. It's Galway's problem. Because when these people leave East Wall, they could be put into my community, and then it's my problem. And that's where I need you to help me. I'm happy to come to East Wall anytime at all you want. But then when this happens on my doorstep, you need to come to me. And you need to come to Galway. And you need to go to Wicklow. And that's what myself and Philip Dwyer and the Men of Ireland and Ireland First have been doing all over this country. We need to stand together as one solid unit and push back against this. Yesterday I called all the TDs for this area. Gary Gannon, guess what? His voice mailbox is full. He must be getting inundated with calls. Nassau Horrigan, no answer. Mary Lou MacDonald unanswered, and she said she's dealing with the problem. Has she dealt with it?
No!
What was their answer?
She voted for it!
She voted for it. Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, the Social Democrats, they all support the same policy. Mass inward migration, replacement of the Irish people. These people are making the streets of this country absolutely unsafe for us to walk. We need to put a stop to this, and we need to put a stop to this now. A few months ago I formed a political movement called Ireland First. We hope to register this party soon, and we hope to challenge the people that have made this their policy for decades. Going forward, we all need to unite, and we need to stand up against this, and we need to stand up against it hard. This protest needs to escalate. We need to start going to these politicians' offices. We need to start making their lives uncomfortable.
Bring it to the doors! Bring it to the doors! Bring it to the doors!
Bring it to the doors! Bring it to the doors! Bring it to the doors!
Bring it to the doors!
The left, the media, the political establishment will label you as racist. They'll label you as far right. They will label you with whatever words they think will work. But it's happened for too long, and at this stage, we're bulletproof. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work for me. It needs to stop working for the Irish people. We've been very good to the rest of the world. We've put our hands in our pockets to feed the rest of the world for decades. Now we need help in this country. We need to start taking care of our own people. We need to start putting Ireland first. Ireland first. I have to say, well done to the people of East Wall for coming out and standing firm on this issue for the last week or so. But you need to continue. You need to organise yourselves, and you need to escalate these protests. You need to go to their offices. Somebody strong needs to lead this movement. Somebody local needs to lead this movement here, because the whole world is watching East Wall now. So if you need me to come back up, I'm happy to come back up. But we all need to do this together. Thank you!
Right, folks, that was very interesting there. Just a couple of comments. Erskine Childers was actually a favourite of mine. From two characters I liked was Erskine Childers and Roger Casement. And I had the privilege of actually being on the Asgard 2 for a trip there years back off the Kish Lighthouse in March. And I have to say I couldn't believe how cold it was at sea. But it was an amazing experience to go out under full sail, to go up underneath the toll bridge there, the East Wall toll bridge, to go underneath it. And what I also found interesting was that to see the level of the water drop as a result of the tide coming both in and out, which I found very interesting. Just another comment as well, this week is the assassination of JFK, a shot which, if you will, is still resonating around the world. But an interesting thing about the funeral of JFK was that St. Patrick's Battalion were the guard of honour at the funeral, and as a result of a drill that was done personally for President Kennedy, that he was actually so impressed with it. He said it was the most beautiful drill he'd seen. His wife requested that they did the guard of honour. And interesting, on the day of Kennedy's assassination was also the day that the Irish Air Corps got delivery of their first 3 Alouette 3 helicopters that were flown in from France, and they provided 43 years service to the state. I just thought I'd throw that in, as you know, my listeners actually like my reference to history. So well done to the speeches today. People spoke very well. The crowd was good, disciplined, and long may it continue. Good afternoon, good luck, and God bless.